You know, every so often we find ourselves at a crossroads, not just as individuals, but as a nation. A moment when silence is not an option. A moment when pretending not to notice the damage being done feels like complicity. And friends, I've never been one to shy away from the hard truths. Because truth matters. Character matters. And leadership, real leadership, isn't about noise or bluster or shouting the loudest. It's about lifting people up, not tearing them down. Now, I understand we're living in challenging times. There's uncertainty. There's anger. People are frustrated. They're scared. And it's easy to fall for the kind of leadership that preys on fear instead of offering hope. But that's not who we are. That's not who we've ever been. America has never moved forward by blaming someone else when things got hard. We didn't rise to greatness by pointing fingers. We did it by rolling up our sleeves, coming together, and getting to work. Let me be clear. Leadership is not entertainment. It's not about getting likes or trending on social media. It's about doing the hard work even when nobody's watching. It's about telling people the truth even when it's uncomfortable. It's about respecting institutions, not tearing them down for personal gain. And yes, it's about understanding that your words carry weight, that what you say can start wars or inspire peace, create division or build unity. When someone in power uses their platform to divide us, to pit us against each other, to suggest that our neighbors are our enemies, they betray the very foundation of what this democracy is built upon. Because the job isn't to make people afraid of each other. The job is to remind them that we're all in this together, that we share more in common than what separates us. And I know it's tempting to want to fight fire with fire, to stoop to the level of those who demean, who distort, who deceive. But I still believe that decency is not a weakness, that empathy is not a flaw, that the quiet courage to do the right thing, even when it's hard, will always outlast the empty rhetoric of division. We've seen what happens when people choose chaos over community, when ego is placed above service. We've seen it, and we cannot afford to look away anymore. We owe it to our children, to that next generation, watching, waiting, wondering what kind of country they're going to inherit, to speak up, to stand tall, to remind ourselves what this fight is really about. It's not about partisanship. It's not about politics. It's about principle. It's about the soul of this nation. It's about whether we choose hope over fear, unity over division, truth over lies. And I still believe deep in my bones that the American people are better than the chaos we've witnessed, that we're stronger than the cynicism, that our story is not finished, and that we together can still write a chapter worthy of our highest ideals. Leadership is not a performance. It's not a show you put on for the camera. It's not measured by how often your name trends or how many times you appear on TV. Real leadership, the kind that stands the test of time, has always been grounded in something deeper. Character. It's about what you do when no one's watching. It's about how you carry yourself when the spotlight is off. It's about whether you use your power to serve others or to serve only yourself. Now, it's easy to confuse attention with influence. In our world today, where a tweet can get more reach than a lifetime of public service, it's easy to believe that making noise is the same thing as making progress, but they are not the same. We've seen leaders who speak the loudest, who dominate every headline, but when you look closely, there's no substance behind the spectacle. There's no plan, no empathy, no vision, just the pursuit of power for power's sake. That's not leadership. That's manipulation dressed up as strength. True leadership means taking responsibility, not shifting blame. When things go wrong, a real leader doesn't look for someone to scapegoat. A real leader says, the buck stops here. They step up. They own their decisions because they understand the weight of their words, the consequences of their actions. They understand that lives are impacted by what they do, and they don't take that responsibility. And it's not just about handling crises. It's about the everyday decisions that shape the direction of a country, a community, a family. Leaders set the tone. They define the standard. They remind people of their shared values. They don't stir up division for political gain. They don't belittle or dehumanize others to feel bigger themselves. They listen, they learn, they try to unite rather than divide. That kind of leadership doesn't always grab headlines, it doesn't always make the evening news, but it's what moves us forward. It's what inspires trust, builds coalitions, and gets things done. Because people can tell the difference. They can feel when someone is speaking from conviction rather than convenience. They can tell when someone's guiding principle is what's right instead of what's popular. Leadership demands discipline. It demands self-control. It means understanding that just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. It means having the maturity to think before you speak, to weigh your words, to lead not just with force, but with wisdom. It means being humble enough to admit when you're wrong and strong enough to change course when necessary. We should expect our leaders to be models of the values we teach our kids. Honesty, kindness, accountability, courage, not perfection, but decency. Not infallibility, but a willingness to grow. Because when leaders rise to meet the moment with that kind of integrity, they don't just lead, they elevate everyone around them. When people in positions of power use their influence to divide us, to pit one group of Americans against another, they're not leading, they're exploiting. They're not solving problems, they're creating deeper ones. Division might be a useful political tactic in the short term, but over time, it corrodes the trust that holds a democracy together. It turns neighbor against neighbor, not because of real differences, but because someone told them they should fear each other. That kind of leadership doesn't make a country stronger, it makes it weaker. We've seen how easy it is to sow seeds of doubt, cast suspicion on the press, on the courts, on the voting process, stir up anger toward people who don't look like us, pray like us, or think like us. We've heard the language that suggests someone else is to blame for all our problems, that we're under attack, that we should be afraid. But that fear, once planted, grows. It grows into hatred. It grows into violence. It leads people to believe that democracy is a zero-sum game. If someone else is gaining, then I must be losing. But democracy is not a zero-sum game. It's not about one group winning while another loses. It's about compromise. It's about the understanding that we're all in this together. That progress for one group doesn't mean less opportunity for another. It means we're all moving forward. When leaders fail to remind us of that truth, when they choose instead to exploit division for personal or political advantage, they betray the very essence of what this nation stands for. Because here's the thing, America has always been at its best when it's united, not uniform, united. There's a difference. We can debate without tearing each other down. That's what democracy is supposed to be. But when you have someone using their platform not to unite, not to lead with vision, but to stoke resentment, to turn diversity into a wedge issue, then we are in dangerous territory. And make no mistake, words matter. When powerful people use rhetoric that is careless, conspiratorial, or cruel, others hear that and take it as permission. They act on it. And suddenly, what started as words on a screen becomes real-world consequences. Violence in our communities, threats to public servants, chaos at the core of our institutions. That's not strength. That's a failure of moral responsibility. We can't afford to normalize that. We can't allow that kind of behavior to be shrugged off as just politics. Because if we do, we risk losing something precious. The idea that we can live together, govern together, respect one another even when we don't agree. That's the promise of democracy. And it requires leaders who don't just win elections, they strengthen the bonds that hold the country together. When division becomes a strategy, democracy becomes the casualty. There's a tendency in our culture to mistake cruelty for strength, to see empathy as weakness, to treat truth as optional, something you can bend or spin depending on what benefits you in the moment. But if we want to build something lasting, whether it's a community, a family, or a country, we have to start by recognizing that decency, empathy, and truth aren't old-fashioned values. They're the foundation of every great society. They're what hold us together when everything else feels like it's coming apart. Decency is not performative. It's not something you put on like a suit during campaign season and then hang back up when no one's watching. It's the quiet choice to treat someone with respect even when you disagree. It's the refusal to mock, belittle, or dehumanize others for a cheap laugh or a few extra votes. It's choosing to lift someone up instead of tearing them down. Not because it's strategic, but because it's right. Empathy, the ability to step into someone else's shoes, to imagine their pain, their hopes, their fears. That's not soft. That's not naive. That's how we build bridges. That's how we heal wounds. When leaders lack empathy, they can't understand the people they serve. They govern from a place of fear and resentment instead of hope and unity. And when you can't feel someone else's pain, it becomes all too easy to ignore it, to deny it, to blame them for it. And that's when injustice starts to take root, not because people are inherently cruel, but because they've forgotten how to care. And then there's truth. We've come to a point where people treat facts like they're negotiable, where lies are repeated so often that they start to feel like reality. But the truth doesn't go away just because it's inconvenient. It doesn't change to suit our preferences. Leadership built on lies may gain power for a while, but it can't build trust. It can't inspire greatness. Because in the end, truth is the compass that keeps us from getting lost. Without it, we drift. We make decisions based on fear, misinformation, and rage, instead of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. The most powerful leaders throughout history weren't the ones who manipulated facts or sowed chaos. They were the ones who stood up and told the truth, even when it was hard. The ones who leaned into empathy, not because it was politically advantageous, but because it connected them to the people they served. The ones who carried themselves with dignity and reminded us what dignity looks like in practice. Because character doesn't reveal itself when things are easy. It shows up in crisis, in hardship, in the quiet moments when no one's applauding. So when we talk about what we need in our leaders, let's stop asking who can yell the loudest or insult the sharpest. Let's ask who tells the truth, who listens, who cares, who leads with heart and humility. Because those are the people who make real change. Those are the people who last. This moment we're living through, it isn't just another chapter in a long book. It's a test of who we are and what we believe in. It's about more than politics or elections. It's about something deeper, something more enduring. It's about the soul of this nation. about whether we still believe in the promise that brought generations of Americans together through wars, through depressions, through civil rights struggles, and moments of great upheaval. The idea that we can govern ourselves with dignity, that we can hold differing opinions without losing our common purpose, that we can build a country rooted in justice, fairness, and opportunity for all. And that soul is under pressure. It's being stretched and strained by a wave of cynicism that says none of it matters, that democracy is broken, that our voices don't count, that we're all on our own, that the best we can do is look out for ourselves and let everyone else fall behind. But that's not the America we were taught to believe in. That's not the America generations before us fought to protect. That's not the America our children deserve to inherit. The fight today is not just about right or left. It's not about one side winning and the other losing. It's about whether we choose to move forward together, guided by our shared values, or allow ourselves to be pulled apart by fear, by anger, by forces that profit from division. Every time we excuse dishonesty, every time we reward cruelty with power, every time we decide that truth is negotiable and decency is outdated,